Here we have an interesting comment from Ran. He's added a fade to black on the second track, and it fades both tracks out, both track 1 and track 2. This is an interesting comment in the sense that we used to complain about the fact that when we had multiple tracks and we wanted multiple tracks to fade or transition, that it only worked on the one track, which is what he wants now. So then they eventually developed the compound clip, or introduced the compound clip, by which we could combine tracks into a single clip, and then we could add a fade to both tracks at the same time. So that used to be like a big issue. So let's take a look at this particular thing here. Now, when we look at his preview screen, we can see, yeah, it's totally black. We can see that he's got a video on track 1, and we can see that there is indeed some QR code on track 2, and that's the one that he's fading. So let's take a closer look at that and discuss a couple of different ways that you can actually do a fade, and not even using a transition, but also a way to do a fade on a single track actually using a transition. And let's start by doing a search on fade, and we'll just do fade to black. And I haven't previously typed it in. So now we have a bunch of different fades. And here's the fade that he's talking about. He drags this down here, and then he shows us that when he has it right here, the preview screen is black. Now, it fades out the QR code just at the beginning when I assume that he wants to show the QR code. So it's actually fading in the wrong direction. Now, of course, he might not have done a search. He might just have been, let me just click it off, and I'll click back on it again. And the fade to black comes up right here. So anyway, the point is that it fades everything out. So it starts with it not being faded, and then all of a sudden it fades everything out. But had he done a search on fade or fade to black, he would have come up with other options. And here is the fade that he's using. But if we scroll down just one more, look at the feature right here, fade single track. So let's delete that, the current one, actually just replace it, fade single track. And we'll put that in right there. And now we can see we have it. So it's not there, and at the end of the transition, it is fading in. In other words, he was using the all-encompassing fade, which, interestingly enough, I did not know that they had transitions that acted on multiple tracks. But apparently that's what this one does, and this one acts on just a single track. So that's pretty cool. All that said, done, there still is a different way that this could be done. If we didn't want to use this single track fade, and let's keep in mind that the standard duration for fade, or for transitions, if we right click on it, we can see that the default is 2 seconds. We can obviously change it, make it longer or shorter or whatever. And that really means that the first half, it fades out, and in the second half, it fades in the second part, because it's meant to span 2 images or 2 video clips. All right, but let's get on to the second way that you actually could have done this just as easily. Okay, let's get rid of this fade altogether, and let's use the shortcut keys Shift Home and move right to the beginning. And at this point, let's just insert a keyframe. And we have a keyframe here, and we look at our keyframe right over here. If we look at compositing, we will see that there is an option for opacity. And we can set this opacity to 0, and that will blank out the QR code completely. And we see that it's not there. Now we can then move up 2 seconds, and in this case we're at the 4-second mark, And here's a feature I actually requested years ago, to be able to move on the timeline just by typing in a new value. So we're going to put in 4 here, and that moves us ahead exactly 2 seconds. Now, of course, you didn't have to do that. You could have just dragged the playhead over there. And as we know that once we placed one keyframe on a track, we can then simply make our alteration and a second keyframe will be put there for us. And voila, here we have our fade in. And in this case, the fade starts immediately, not after 1 second. So that's the second way you could do it. But basically, I don't agree with his comment that it's outdated or not working. There's actually more options available than he used.